He's got moments where he seems to be a bad guy with a heart of gold, and he has the tragic backstory that helps humanize him.
I am here to make you mine.
Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today, we'll be discussing Just Divine by Move. Before we get started, there will be spoilers, so if you don't want to be spoiled in this manhwa, go ahead and click off now. No worries, I'll catch you next time. For those of you who decide to stick around, let's go over some content warnings. There may be references to hunting, religion, injured animals, blood, violence, murder, sex work, murder for hire, ageism, kidnapping, power imbalance, invasion of privacy, manipulation, confinement, death, mentions of treason, mentions of arson, being orphaned, enslavement, child abuse, epidemics, mentions of capital punishment, imprisonment, starvation, theft, PTSD, and excessive drinking, as these things do appear in the manhwa. But if that's okay with you, let's go and get started. Changyan is a demigod. Being not fully human, nor fully divine, leaves him longing for the side of himself that he doesn't get to indulge in very often, his human side. This results in him escaping to Earth from the great beyond, catching various animals, and then sneaking them back as pets, no matter how often his father tries to convince him to stop. On one of these outings, however, while he's in the form of a deer, Changyan ends up being injured by a hunter. He's racing through the woods, trying to escape, only to run into another human. Desperate, he begs the human to hide him, which the human does, and even goes so far as to wrap Changyan's wound. Changyan is smitten. He wants nothing more than to take his human back with him to the great beyond. So he tells the human to come to a lake, which functions as a pathway between worlds, where he will be able to meet a divine being. The divine being will grant the human a wish. It's all a ruse so Changyan can capture him and take him back home as a new pet. But what Changyan fails to realize is that this man, Muksan, is not just any human. Muksan is a murderer, and Changyan's peaceful divine life is about to be turned on its head because of him. To start with, the art in this is interesting. There are some really nice panels, but most of them are kind of wonky. There's something about the shapes of our main cast's faces that just throws me off for some reason. They are super inconsistent, and I'm not fond of it. Of the two though, Changyan is the most consistent. Plus, he's a top, and I'm a huge sucker for a pretty top. I do love that they're both very masculine men, which is rarer than I'd like to admit in BL, but it's unfortunate that the art style isn't as up to par as I would have liked it. Unfortunately, the story is also not my favorite thing in the world. It feels very disjointed and like it tries to do a ton of work in too short of a package. Muksan in particular is woefully underdeveloped. He's a bad guy. He kills people for hire, kills people just because, and steals everything that isn't bolted down. He's conniving and cruel, but that isn't why I dislike him. I mean, the top from Blind Play is one of my favorites, and he's a serial killer and torturer too. He's got moments where he seems to be a bad guy with a heart of gold, and he has the tragic backstory that helps humanize him, but he still comes off as an asshole. It's meant to be humorous and silly, but I don't find it to be either. This could just be because the, quote, comedy in this isn't for me, but that doesn't change the fact that he's a jerk. Plus, unlike many of my other beloved killers, Muksan's relationship with his partner, Changyan, is hardly a relationship at all. There's a fun semi-mind control setup, with Changyan putting a collar on Muksan that causes him to fall in line and steadily fall for him. But that does little to nothing to actually bring these two closer together. Changyan still seems to see Muksan as a pet or oddity, and Muksan doesn't feel like he cares for Changyan beyond him being an easy mark and occasional lay. It's super unfortunate. But there is one ray of light in the story. Unfortunately, it's a brief light, but I'll take what I can get. Changyan and Muksan end up unofficially adopting an orphan child. This is probably the most emotional growth we see from Muksan, and this is the closest we get to a romantic and almost familial relationship between Changyan and Muksan. Sadly, just when we're getting all of this growth, the story ends. I think what this needed was more time. There needs to be more time to explore Changyan and how his views about those on Earth evolve. More time is needed to see Muksan grow and change as a person and gain insight into his feelings for Changyan. And, of course, I'd have loved to see more family time with their adopted son, but we don't get any of that. Instead, we get some smut, violence, and a disjointed narrative. It's disappointing. With all that being said, I've been reading a bunch of shorts, and while some have been winners, this was not among them. The characters were so opposing that they needed so much more time to develop and, in turn, make their relationship even slightly feasible. Muksan remains wholly unlikable, and I'm not sure that Changyan is able to see a human as a true romantic partner. Plus, I'm a sucker for child rearing in my BL, and for that to be the best part, yet be so short, hurts more than it helps. I like the premise of this, but it's ultimately just an overall miss. So, have you read Just Divine? If so, what do you think? Do you agree with my assessment? Do you not? Let me know in a comment below. Otherwise, I'll catch you next time. Bye!